Hello everyone, welcome to Economics Time. So in this video, we are going to talk about Chapter 5, Measuring National Income and Product. This video is part 1. In the first 4 chapters, we introduce the basic concepts, principles, models for economics. Started from Chapter 5, we are going to talk about macroeconomics. Do you remember macroeconomics? It is about GDP, unemployment, and inflation. Very good. So, Chapter 5 is about GDP. Chapter 6 is about unemployment and inflation. Do you remember what GDP stands for? Gross Domestic Product, right? Very good. It is used to measure 2 things. One is the total income of all members in an economy. The other one is the total expenditure of the nation's output. So for the first one, the total income of all members in an economy, so let's take a look at here. It is as if we set a checkpoint in the factors market. Whenever households receive any payment income, we just add that, and that is the income of all members in an economy. This is one. The other one, the total expenditure of a nation's output, that one is as if we set a checkpoint over here in the products market. So every time when the households spend their money going through the checkpoint, and we add it up, and then we'll be able to get GDP. Okay? The definition of GDP is the market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period. So there is a lot of technical things in this definition. The first one is, what do you mean by market value? Why do we want to use market value? The second part is final goods. Are there any goods that are not final? Produced within a country, what does that mean? What if the good is produced in the country but is not owned by the citizens of that country? And then in a given period, how long is that given period? So I'm going to break it down into small parts and explain all of these technical terms. Okay? So what is market value? Market value is the value of the product that is measured by the price. So if you use the price of the product, multiplied by the quantity produced or quantity sold, you will get the market value of the good. So why do we have to get the market value? Well, because GDP have to add all of the product produced inside a country. So you all know that we cannot add directly apples to oranges, right? We have millions of different goods and services. I just cannot be added that way. So we have to convert that into dollar value. So when this apple is worth $1, this orange is also worth $1, then you can add them. So that is the reason why we have to convert all of the services and goods into the market value and then add them up to get the GDP. Okay? The second term is final goods and services. So what do you mean by final goods and services? Well, final goods means the good must be new and the good must be finished. It's already for sale. Put it in the market, ready for sale, or you purchase it for consumption or for other purposes already. What do you mean by new? new must be new in that particular year. For example, if we are calculating GDP for year 2020, then all of the goods and services, as long as it's final, produced in 2020 will be in that year's GDP. So goods produced within the same period of time will be considered as new. So this is what final goods and services means. Therefore, final goods and services do not include used products. Used products must be the good that produced before the year. For example, if we are calculating GDP for year 2020, this year, right? Then all of the goods produced in 2019 is going to be counted under used products. Used products was new back in 2019. They have been already counted in 2019's GDP. So in 2020, they should not be counted because it's not produced within the same year. Do you get it? So that is one. The other one is some of the goods that are not final. These goods are called intermediate products. These intermediate products refers to material used to make something else. So let's take a look at this example. Intermediate goods are the ingredients or the components of a finished product. So itself is not a finished product. It is just part of it. So salt can be either a intermediate good or a final good. So it is intermediate good if the baker buys the salt, put the salt to make bread, and then he sells bread. Now salt become part of the bread. So because of that, it is intermediate. Salt itself is not final. In this case, in fact, the bread is the final good. Okay. Now in this case, this consumer, buy salt and then go home and consume it at home. So this is a final good. It's used for consumption. You don't use it for something else and then use it to make something else. So those are intermediate goods. Intermediate goods are not final, and we are not going to count it into final goods. Do you know why? Because salt becomes a part of the bread. When you count the bread as a final good, the salt inside has been also counted. So if you include this salt and the bread, you double count salt. Do you get it? Very good. Here is one other example. Intermediate good is the fabric. We use the fabric to make something else. So when you use it to make something else, that is an intermediate good. What is final? We don't use a shirt to make something else. This is a final. You wear it, right? So this is a final good. Intermediate good is not counted because the fabric here has been counted into the shirt, right? So that's why we only count final goods. Okay, very good. Now, financial securities is not being counted into GDP because what we really want to count is what kind of products that we produce for people's consumption, for investment. It's not the financial securities. Financial securities are owners, stock ownership, the firm's ownership, and the loans. So we don't count that. So the final goods and services must be produced within a country. What do you mean? It includes products made in the country. Every product, goods and services made inside the country will be included into that country's GDP. It doesn't care, we don't care about who owns it. Exclude products made outside the country and owned by its citizens. Some of the American-owned products actually is produced outside the United States. We don't count ownership. So because of that, those products, as long as it's being produced outside our country, we don't count it into our GDP. Okay, so here is example. Should foreign cars be included in US GDP? You know that there is a lot of cars that is produced in the United States, and those cars are foreign owned. For example, Toyota Camry, that is the top one produced cars in the United States, and that is owned by Japanese. Okay, Honda Accord, owned by Japanese. Acura, this one is owned by Japanese too. BMW, is it a German car? So German owns it. So these foreign cars are made inside USA. They have their plant in the USA, and then they produce it. So because they make inside US, therefore this car's value is included in US GDP. Okay. Now, on the other hand, American cars made abroad, should those be included in US GDP? You probably know the answer, right? They should not be included in US GDP, but because they are not made in the United States. Many American cars make outside the country. This one is a Ford Fiesta. It's made in Mexico. Many other countries produce American cars because, you know, those are multinational companies. They produce outside and then sell their cars outside, you know, in Mexico too. So since they are not produced in the United States, they are not included in US GDP. We have an alternative concept called GNP. It is the market value of all final goods and services owned by its citizens in a given period. The only difference is owned by its citizens. So whoever owns the product counts into GNP. If we don't own it, it's not in GNP. For example, the foreign cars made inside US. We count that into US GDP because it's made in the United States. However, it's a foreign owned cars. We don't own it. Therefore, in the US GNP, we don't count the value over here because we don't own it. Okay. And on the other hand, this is American owned cars. Ford, this is a Ford. It is included in US GNP because American owns it. It's produced outside, so we don't count it in GDP. In a given period, the given period is the Bureau of Economic Analysis is the place that calculates GDP. They publish quarterly GDP and yearly GDP. So those are the given period. I am going to stop here for part 1. I'll see you in part 2. Bye.